A lot of people just blend their retention strategy with their welcome and pop-up flow strategy. It kind of just ends up being this one size fits all type thing. It's really important that you measure it and that you make sure that you're supporting acquisition. But the reality is, like, you need to support acquisition through email and SMS, less kind of retention marketing efforts. The bigger problem is that most brands still, blast a coupon code and kind of call it a day. Attributing to acquisition or retention, it's a necessity. It is a big driver. So momentum with this is really everything. Hey, Jimmy, I think you have the wrong hat on. This isn't the awesome pod.
Oh, there you go. Well, here's proof that I actually have hair. That's first of all, but here we go now. Another black hat, one of my many black hats that I have here. So excited
No,
here, Chase. What's up, good man? How you doing?
no pun intended. No black hat here.
I like that.
All
That's
good
like a
though.
dad nerd joke. I don't know what that is, but
Yeah, definitely a
with
dad
that,
joke.
let's do this thing. We've got a lot to go over here. Welcome, Series Master, in 3, 2, 1.
From the open to the click, they're the masters of the flow. Just watch your list grow and your leads turn to gold. Did we retain you so far, or do we have to extend it? If you want results, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Send It, where we discuss anything and everything retention marketing, specifically in email and SMS marketing and e-commerce. My name is Jimmy Kim, and I'm here with my co-host,
Chase Diamond.
Yo, Chase. We are back for episode number 29. Welcome, Series Mastery, going beyond the basics of a lasting engagement. We're talking about that first handshake after sign up and how we turn those brand new prospects into first-time buyers. So today we're going to break it all down. We're going to go through it all step by step and break it all down, give some real examples. We'll work and do some role playing. I think there's a lot we can talk about. Now, before we kick this thing off, I want to talk about why welcome flows are so important. So first things first, right? Welcome flows versus a standard promotion, there's two very key points. One, you're going to get a tremendously higher open, north of 50 to 60% on an open rate versus maybe a 20, 30, 40% on a campaign. But even more importantly is the revenue. Oftentimes, it's usually 9 to 11 times higher than your typical Tuesday newsletter. And the craziest part about all this, and one thing we'll talk about a lot about, is that people who saw a welcome email and a welcome text are 47.7% more likely to make a first purchase. That's a pretty big deal if you ask me. So,
Hey.
Look, this week on social, or this past week, or whenever you're watching this pod, I actually wrote a post, and I want to kind of frame this post starting because it will be a good framing to the beginning of this conversation, right? So this is what I said on social, and I'm going to read this off. Attributing your pop-up flow revenue to retention, ? You're doing it wrong. Here's the truth most email marketers are missing. Welcome flow supports acquisition, not retention. That first purchase was likely happening with or without your email or SMS. When someone signs up to a pop-up and buys, you are assisting a sale. But let's be real, they're showing high intent. True retention marketing behavior flows and campaigns that bring customers back happen after the first purchase. The goal of retention marketers is to make the second purchase. That is retention marketing. Count your welcome flow as part of your overall email effort, sure, but lumping it with your retention metrics gives you a dangerously inflated view of your retention strategy effectiveness. Keep your attribution clean. Your CFO, thank you. Your retention strategy will improve when you measure that. Chase, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I like that. I think that's spot on. I think it's common, right? And a lot of people just blend their retention strategy with their welcome and pop-up flow strategy. It kind of just ends up being this one size fits all type thing. But, again, as you mentioned, it's really important that you measure it and that you make sure that you're supporting acquisition. But the reality is, like, you need to support acquisition through email and SMS, less kind of retention marketing efforts, right? All that said, like, I know the bigger problem is that most brands still, blast a coupon code and kind of call it a day. And with that, like, we're gonna go deeper into the flow and kind of break it down and dissect it, really step by step to make sure that everyone watching and listening to this really understands what we consider to be like that perfect welcome flow. Because as you mentioned, it is really important, whether it's attributing to acquisition or retention, it's a necessity. It is a big driver. So with all of that said, right, all that out of the way, let's talk about like kind of the meat of this, right? Like what we're really going to dive into, starting with the first email. So what we're going to do kind of is break down, what it is and kind of move on from there. So
Cool.
with this first email, again, this is an immediate welcome and an incentive. So starting with the timing, a lot of people have questions about that. That needs to go out right away. And typically right by the time that someone actually receives it, it's probably within minutes of signups, right? If it's any later than that, you're doing it wrong, right? Because momentum with this is really everything. So that being said, let's pretend like an example. Let's say we're a bedding sheets company, right? So here's kind of the checklist, I'd say, like of copy different blocks. Starting at the top, right? Let's have some kind of like hero greeting. And a lot of people obviously do design and whatnot. So picture this visually, right? But the hero text is going to be something like "Welcome to better bedtime," right? Just something simple that captures the attention and the essence of what the company in this case does. And then next, right, we want to pretty quickly answer the question that people have, like, what's in it for me? And we do this by kind of the value proposition or the value promise. So this could be something like luxury sheets without the luxury markup. So essentially, right, like you're getting a great product at a great price is essentially what we're saying. And then some sort of incentive. So this incentive needs to align with whatever the pop-up, or the flyout or the embedded form promised, right? If it was a discount code, deliver the discount code. If it was free shipping, deliver the free shipping. If it was a free, lead magnet, deliver that, right? So here, let's pretend that they're doing a 15% off, right? So you have some kind of big call to action, maybe a button or whatever that says use code FRESH15, right? So fresh bed seats, FRESH15, right? That's going to be the code. And then with that, we're then going to want to deliver social proof, right? So we've kind of built upon like who we are, why we matter. Here's the discount that we promised, adding the social proof, right? So we've actually had over 100,000 people review this product, and we're at 4.9 out of 5 stars, right? We're near perfect. We're not perfect, but we're near perfect. And we have a lot of people that have actually reviewed it and rated us, which is important. And at the end, right, you want to have your kind of classic sign off things like your footer compliance and any kind of quick links. So that's kind of the meat and kind of the checklist of like the copy blocks. And then last thing before I hand it over to you, in terms of like the subject line, as always, right, run some kind of A/B test, split test. And things could essentially be like version A might be your 15% welcome gift is inside. And maybe you have like the gift emoji or kind of the boxing emoji, that type of thing. Or something as simple as like, hey, welcome, luxury comfort awaits, Jimmy, kind of leveraging that first name personalization. You have anything to add? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. So hold on. Hero, value, incentive, social, footer, right? Look, those are the 5 elements of good copy. And I know you post a lot on social around copywriting. So if you guys got that and picked that up and want to learn more, definitely check out Chase's social when he talks about and posts those great infographics. But look, the one thing I think I would add to that as I'm hearing email number 1 is right away, you should absolutely run SMS, which every brand should do. If you're not running SMS today, like, I think that's crazy. It's such a simple add-on and the ROI is there, even if you're just adding it for your welcome flow. But that should send some type of confirmation text probably within about an hour afterwards. I like to stagger them just a little bit. And it would be something like, hey, Jimmy, it's bedsheets.com or whatever. Your 15% code, FRESH15, is active. Shop bestsellers. Here's the link, right? Very simple, short, punchy, to the point, short, and obviously making sure that it's trackable and has all the fancy links and all that stuff, right? That's all very important. And the big tip here is, as we go into it, is like, when you're supporting that, you don't want to stuff 8 products or in your origin story and all that stuff into email or your SMS. You really want to keep it really snackable and light. I think that's the most important thing. Like, the intent is already there. You don't need to go and continue trying to sell people. You need to shut up, give them what they want, and move on to the next step.
Totally agree. All right, so now we covered the first kind of email and SMS. Let's talk about email too, the next email. And by the way, to clarify and to make sure this is really clear, if people convert off of email 1 or SMS 1, don't send them welcome email 2. Don't send them welcome email 3, SMS 2, SMS 3, right? At any point in which they convert through the welcome series, they should be booted then into a post-purchase. And that's fairly standard, whether you're using like an omni-send or whatever. As long as you have the kind of the flow logic set up, that should automatically happen in real time as soon as someone makes a purchase. Hey there, it's Chase. Just quick 15 seconds of your time because I have something really fun to share. Did you know that between myself and Jimmy, we have over 20 years of experience in email marketing specifically? And recently, we put our minds together and created a certification program that takes all of our knowledge to share it with you. It's called Ecom Email Certified. It's an end-to-end course and certification program that's designed to take anyone, regardless of whether you're a newbie or an experienced marketer, founder, executive, agency marketer, etc., and really teaches them everything we know about email and SMS marketing. And it really covers the full A through Z, everything from deliverability, AI, copywriting, design, strategy, you name it, we cover it. And it's loaded with over 175 modules. Yes, that's correct. We have 175 plus modules and counting. And it's 25 plus hours of education combined with quizzes and a community, all designed to educate, test, and certify you or your team members to be a full-fledged email marketer for e-commerce. And since you're listening to this pod, we really want to hook you up for your loyalty and hook you up with a $200 off coupon code of the certification. So jump over to ecomemailcertified.com. You'll find the code over there. And with that, we're now back to the pod. So with that, right, email 2 is going to be really focused on like the story and kind of furthering your credibility. In email 1, we talked about the social proof. In email 2, we're going to further that credibility. So, maybe let's say one day later, we want to kind of strike while the iron's hot. We want to start feeding into the kind of the curiosity that someone may have, or if they don't have it, how do we get them to be really curious about your brand? So as an example, subject line, it could be something like, it all started in my garage, right? Or it started in my basement, or it started, however it starts, something that's kind of mysterious and intriguing. And really, like, this email is going to read like kind of a mini documentary, right? Think about like everything that happens right now on Netflix, for example. Lots of people are, watching documentaries or docu-series. People even listen to kind of podcasts or audiobooks about, documentaries, etc. It's really part of our culture. So tying that into this email is super important. This will include things like photos of the founders, maybe a map of the garage, right? Like if you actually started it in your garage or your parents' basement or whatever, hopefully you have a photo of you from there. And if you still work from there or whatever, you want to recreate it, go recreate it. And then having some kind of call to action to meet the founders. And in this email, you don't necessarily need to have the discount, right? Because this is more focused on the brand story and building that credibility. What do you got for me, Jimmy?
Yeah, I like that one. That's definitely spot on to how I'd be approaching it. Another way that you could also really tell this longer story that people are doing in the market that I think people enjoy is a version of a 60-second like founder selfie, right? You could put it on your social media, your TikTok, your Instagram, wherever it is. And it could be like, hey, it's Jimmy. I started bed sheets because my mom battled eczema, for example. Here in our lab, meet our chemist. This is how we do it. Like, building a story builds trust and makes that offer feel earned, right? Something when you couldn't find that sheets were soft and hypoallergenic. We spent 2 years obsessing over like cotton, right? And fair mills and like going and visiting places. You deserve this comfort and conscious. Like trying to figure out a good story to tell people, because we all have a story. I think this is the most important thing people need to understand. And if you're a retention marketer and you don't know the story, go sit with your founder, go sit with whoever owns the company and be like, hey, what's the story of this brand? Because most brands don't start because they just felt like they found something and they decided to sell it. A lot of brands sell because they had a story, an idea, and they decided to go execute on it.
Love it. So that's kind of capturing email 2. Now let's talk about email 3, right? So again, assuming people haven't converted on email 1 or SMS 1, email 2, etc., we're going to send them kind of this third email, right? And really the overarching goal of this email is to A, kind of remind them of the offer, and B, really apply some urgency. Again, if you don't apply urgency, why would someone buy, or why should someone buy today versus tomorrow versus in a week or maybe never, right? So urgency is super important. So this email will go out on day 3 or 4, essentially. So maybe another 1 to 2 days out from email 2. And essentially it's going to be about, hey, if you haven't bought, it's go time. Same code, new angle, social proof, and countdown. So just stressing that is super important. And with this, right? So let's talk about subject lines. I kind of think about it in that frame. Subject line A, because we're going to have 2 subject lines, could be something like, hey, quick heads up, 40 hours left, your welcome gift is expiring, or 15% off is expiring, something like that, right? And then, or the B could be something like last call, first name. So last call, Jimmy. See why over 100,000 sleepers gave us 5 stars. And right, I think the actual rating was like 4.9 or something, right? But put 5 stars and maybe clarify within the email it was 4.9 or something. Just keep it simple.
I like
What would
that.
you add to this?
Another way to add urgency, and I love this style, is to embed a live timer of a GIF into the hero message. Have a dynamic countdown block that you can add in, and there's plenty of tools. The ESP support this. You definitely want to try to create some kind of FOMO and excitement. And I heard these little things, and I can't remember where I read the stat, but there's a stat that says that your click-through rates were increased by like 14% or more with a live countdown timer versus static text because it stands out really. So if I'm thinking about the formula as I'm adding this together, Chase, I start thinking about the top, right? You got a countdown strip, code expires in 2 days, for example, maybe a star rating bar with your top selling products. You throw some UGC in there because now it's a time to like build that social proof. So you got 3 happy customers that, they're shining faces, maybe video, whatever it might be to kind of get them going. And then of course the CTA button, reiterating that coupon. So redeem fresh 15, like you said earlier. So I think that's really a good thing. And of course, don't forget, if they do purchase before this email, like you've got to make sure you've got people filtering out if they make a purchase, so it doesn't send them this email, because this email would come off really weird if they've already made a purchase.
Cool. So that recaps number 3. Let's talk now about number email 4 and maybe even 5 and 6, right? Here we're going to be focused on kind of evergreen value. So we've kind of hit them with a couple different things, right? We hit them, the first week welcome, kind of introducing everything. The next one was really more focused about building the trust and telling the story. The last one was urgency and kind of the offer. Now we're going to basically focus on people, giving them value, and that comes in different shapes and sizes. So essentially, we don't want to kind of ghost the folks that need a little bit more warming. Not everyone's going to be ready and primed to buy after 3 emails. It might take longer because, again, keep in mind, while a lot of people are going to open your welcome email comparative to other emails, not 100% of emails are going to be open, right? So someone might open email 1, might miss email 2, they might email 3, they might miss number 4, right? So we want to keep kind of staying in touch because it does take multiple touch points to get these people to feel comfortable to buy from you, especially if they happen just to find you from like an advertisement or something, right? It's a little bit different depending on if someone got like a really warm introduction from like a family member or a friend. So the context also matters. But with this, right, days like, let's call it 5 through 8, we're going to want to hit them with something like a how-to guide or a best practice guide, right? So for example, if you're a fashion brand, maybe you send something like, here are 3 ways to style your new t-shirt, right? Teaching people kind of how to style it, accessorize it, etc. And hopefully, right, the things in which you're teaching them are also items that you sell. Or maybe it's items that they probably already have that aren't specific to a name brand, right? Maybe it's like, hey, with this white t-shirt, go find, if you're a male, go find a black hat to rock, or go find this color, jeans, or these color shoes, right? Help us guys that aren't really stylish out. Right? We could use it. And then, or like maybe if you're a coffee gear brand, right? Maybe you're setting just education value around like, here are 5 brew tips for cafe quality cups, right? Everyone wants the kind of quality of the Starbucks from the comfort of their home, right? So how can you teach people about that? And then if you run a longer series, right, getting into emails 5 and 6, kind of as I alluded to, you can drip things like loyalty program into it, any kind of UGC, any kind of referral perks, and kind of the cadence widens, maybe day 15, day 30, to maintain kind of that omnipresence without being kind of annoying. So as you get into more and more emails, you should have the spacing kind of go from like 1 or 2 days apart to 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. So that way, again, you're always kind of staying top of mind without hitting people daily every day for 15 or 30 days.
No, I definitely think that this is really spot on to where you should be thinking about. But a little tip for timing, and I think this is really important for retention marketers to understand, is that you should look at your data and your sales cycle of your actual prospect to conversion rate. You should be, and I think it takes, I don't think anyone displays this anywhere. So you almost have to do the raw math, but like you got to look at what your average cycle of people who are converting over time is. And you should be able to work backwards off that data and go and say, hey, my average person converts either immediately or over like 3 days. Well, then you need to make sure that you're heavy on those emails because you know that this is going to happen. And the further you get away from that, often you're not going to bring in any more new sales. So it's important to know where you can overdo it often. People might go 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. You might be overdoing it often. So you've got to make sure you're coming up with a good kind of cadence and speed.
Hey, it's Chase, and I hope you're enjoying the pod. But if I can just have a quick 60 seconds of your time, I really want to share a quick story with you. So I've been using Klaviyo since 2017. My email course and social posts starting in 2020 drove hundreds and hundreds of brands and agencies to start using Klaviyo. At one point, I think I was their largest referrer of brands and agencies out of anyone in the world. And then those brands and agencies had referred hundreds and hundreds more to Klaviyo. At one point, again, I was their largest networker, largest referral through all of this. And according to the Klaviyo rep, my agency also was the top agency on their platform for managed book of business. So really was a Klaviyo superstar, rock star. However, a couple of years ago, unfortunately, I noticed a major shift at Klaviyo. And I really wasn't a fan of it. So I started looking for other platforms to work with. I needed a new home. Clients needed new homes. Friends and other folks needed a new home. So I started really diving in deep into it. And with that, right, I went searching for an alternative. And I started finding platforms. I started connecting with the executives, started talking to customers. And one that really caught me by surprise was OmniSend. I met the co-founder and CEO, Rydas, back in 2021, and he was awesome. Really cool dude, really down to earth, really kind, and very, very helpful. Extremely helpful, actually. And because I was only kind of focused at Klaviyo at the time, I didn't end up kind of taking that relationship too much further. However, kind of more recently over the past year or two, it was obvious to me that OmniSend really was Klaviyo's biggest competition, the closest to them in every aspect possible. You think about all the core features, OmniSend really had that. I was really impressed and really surprised. And frankly, I wish I started taking them a little bit more serious sooner. I dig the team, I dig their platform, and their outlook for the coming months and years is incredible. And this success really speaks for itself. I know I'm vouching for it and speaking for it, but their success stands by itself. They have over 125,000 e-commerce brands using them, and they have a 4.5 star rating from over 6,000 companies on the Shopify store. They actually, at the last time I checked a couple of days ago, they have 2x number of ratings and reviews as Klaviyo, all while having a better rating overall. They're 4.8 out of 5 stars, right? It's incredible. And really with it, I use it for my own list. A lot of my friends and clients are using it. They make it super easy to engage your list, drive repeat sales, and create that seamless personalized experience that we're all aiming for. This is why I'm really excited to be all in on OmniSend. I have joined them as a customer, I have joined them as an advocate, and I've joined them as an influencer. I switched my own newsletter over there, and my clients are starting to switch too, and you need to be switching there as well.
All right. I want to flip over to SMS integration a little bit because, one of the things that come into place is people are trying to still figure out how to run SMS. Now, there's two core beliefs in the market. One, I've heard it. People say, oh, you should run them like independent channels. I don't think that's the right move, but that's what some people will say. And then number two is you should run him like a unified channel and experience. I personally have always believed in that, regardless if I'm with a provider or without a provider. I always think that you should be unifying that experience because it really drives a better messaging for the customer. It's the same single customer at the end. So first rule before we even go down to unified cadence is never copy your email into your SMS. It's a ping, not a PDF. I like to try to remind people that don't copy everything you said on your email to your SMS. No one cares. Your SMS should be short and punchy and get them to do one action and one action only to make a click, right? All right. So if I'm thinking about a unified cadence sample, right, and I'm thinking about how do I go over this and I go over this, and I think we kind of touched on it, but it goes something like this. Your first email goes out immediately, right? Within minutes, you got the code and your warm welcome. Within an hour or so, you want to get that SMS out and remind them that you've got that SMS to get them out there, right? So that happens 1 or 2 hours right after that first email. Then the next day, you might send an email about their story and mission. And then that same day, you might follow them up a couple hours later in the afternoon with their code. Your 15% code is live, shop the best sellers, right? And then you throw in another email the next day out or 2 days out after that with a countdown urgency like we talked about. And then you blend that in with a code expires at midnight that same day later on that day. So if you drop that first email, let's say 9 a.m. in the morning, you want to follow that at 6 p.m. at night, really just scoping through the entire day because, a lot of SMS it's a now and time channel. So it only works for the moment that the person is going into that product or in that moment where they're looking at that. So thinking about it like that, when you think about unifying your your email and SMS, it really is just that simple. Coming off each other, playing off times, echoing different messages, but not saying the same thing, using that space to say a different message and so forth. Chase, what else do you have to add to that? Anything I missed on that idea?
Yeah, that was great. No, I was awesome. I think the only other thing that you could potentially leverage is kind of integrating like a two-way kind of SMS dialogue where essentially you're kind of prompting people to give you insight and then you're allowing them to receive kind of insight back from you. So kind of make that really simple. So say whatever the company is, right? Chase's company. I might say something like, "Hey Jimmy, do you need help picking a roast?" And in this case, obviously, right, like we're talking about coffee. I sell coffee at Chase's company. And I might say, "Hey, Jimmy, are you into light, medium, or dark roast?" Right? And you might say, "Hey, I like dark roast." Right? You might say, "I want if A was light, B was medium, and C was dark." You might say C, or whatever it might be for dark. And I would say, "Okay, cool. Here are our three most popular dark roasts from you to choose from, and here's your custom code, dark 15, and it'll auto apply." Right? It's a really great way to kind of quickly quiz people and allow them to get insights back and then get a code that's super custom to what they did. Brands that do stuff like this, kind of more of the conversational threads, kind of the conversational conversation, those types of things, dude, they're seeing upwards of like 25 to 30% CTRs. Like, it's insane.
No, that's really cool. And I think that that's another good way to think about it is like use the SMS to intrigue or to spark conversation out, right? I think that just like email, same thing with SMS, you should use those as conversation channels. If you're sending them into your blank inbox where you're not monitoring them, you're really just doing a disservice to yourself and to your brand anyways. So it's the same idea when it comes to SMS. All right. Let's shift gears to personalization wins. Let's start with the perfect example of a first party data case, right? Because this is important when you're thinking about the welcome flow. I was looking at a brand called Babylist, right? And they sell baby products, gear, clothing, all that stuff. And they capture, a lot of the things that they work on is working towards that first baby or getting a person who's pregnant and getting them in there. And one of the things I really liked about their baby capture page was they ask you when your due date is. And and then they probably time it. And what I could read on this case study I was reading about is that the discount email hits exactly 60 days pre-due, right? Due date, right? And I think that's really a good one. So if that's one like example of a good personalization. Another way to do personalization with something, if you don't have a due date or something and you have a skincare company, for example, and you say, I want to create a one-click quiz pop-up, right? Don't get crazy. Don't ask him for a lot of stuff. I'm a skincare company. What's your number one reason for skincare? Well, there's only usually one or two reasons. So maybe I'll say like glowing or verse clear. And then based on what they answer, you tag him and you send that message based around that answer. So let's just say they clicked on glowing. You would say glowing skin starts here, right? And versus if you say clear and then clear, then it's clear skin starts here, Jimmy. Like, it's not hard to make these small shifts that make people feel like it's truly personalized. Like, the way you think about personalization is really being in tune with their needs and wants and talking to them because it actually resonates with them. And that's a perfect example of how simple it really can be to create personalization for messaging.
And dude, what I love about for example, the due date thing is like that's such a powerful data point where I know obviously not all babies are due on due dates, but they're typically due plus or minus, let's say like a week or two in most cases, where because you have the due date, you can, like you said, hit them 60 days before, 30 days before, right? Maybe when they're due, like happy due date, whatever. And then from there, right, like you can keep selling them stuff. You might not know the exact day, but you have a time frame where like, if someone's due date, let's say is June 15th, more likely than not, that baby's birthday is going to be somewhere in June, right? So, maybe a year later after the baby's born, it's like June 1st comes around, happy, birthday month to your little one, right? Maybe even if you collect gender, like happy birthday to, your little boy or happy birthday to your little girl, right? You have all this data, and that data, someone's birthday doesn't really ever change. So you have that, right, for good. And then the other thing too, right, is even like if say in the future for a different type of brand, if someone doesn't want to give you their birthday, you can even ask people about like what's their astrological symbols or signs or whatever they're called, right? And you kind of have a sense of like the range in which people were born and when their birthday is, and kind of certain things that about them. And some people are really into that, right? So there's just so much cool stuff that you can do if you capture the right data.
Hey, it's Jimmy, taking just 30 seconds of your time because I found something game-changing for e-commerce marketers and agencies. If you're drowning in retention marketing tasks, we have a solution for you. It's AI strategist, AI segmentation, AI email builder. It's called Raelion, and this platform is helping marketers create everything from emails, custom segmentation based on your data, and even helping you design your email marketing strategy. Imagine getting from audit to campaign to planning in just a handful of clicks in under 5 minutes. Their AI handles everything: segmentation, strategy, creating on-brand copy that actually converts. Brands that are using Raelion are saving 50% of their retention marketing time and seeing an average 3-time ROI. That's why brands like Cost, Ginger Milk, and Life Pro trust them. Head over to Raelion.io for free 3 email AI segmentation playbooks in just 60 seconds. Yes, it's 100% free to try. They'll give you the best 5 minutes to spend today. Raelion.io, let them know that Chase and Jimmy sent you. Now back to the pod.
But back to this. So let's talk about kind of some expected metrics based on what we're trying to talk about. So some benchmarks that you kind of should aim for as follows. So in terms of the open rate, kind of the benchmark with a lot of this should be, right around 45% or kind of north of 45%. And if you're not there, I would start by trying things like the subject line, the preview text, and send time. So A/B testing those, obviously, one variable at a time. If you're still having issues with those, and no matter how much testing and no matter how much segmentation you're leveraging and whatnot, you just can't get above it, there's probably a likelihood that you have some sort of deliverability issue that needs to be addressed. Moving on to the click rate, right? So again, it really varies. So having a more specific breakdown by your industry is important, but somewhere in the ballpark of like an 8 to 12%, or 8 kind of to 12%, yeah, give or take, is kind of the average. And what do you kind of tweak if you're lower than that, right? Maybe testing kind of the button or the link size. A lot of people have text that's just too small. I like personally like 18 to 20 point font. So, or maybe even more, depending on if your demo is older, you might want it to be bigger. Smaller usually is never better. And then kind of product curation as well. Like, what are you recommending people? Is your recommendation engine good? Is it bad? Is it broken? Does it make sense? Like, is it relevant and isn't personal? And if it is, like, you're going to probably see inherently a lot more clicks. Dude, again, one more tangent thing. I was thinking over the weekend, I was thinking to myself, like, what brands have the highest open rate and click rates? And I'd say that the two that I thought of, one was Redfin, and the other was probably Amazon.
Yep.
Redfin being like the fact that like all of us are crazy people and we all are obsessed with looking at houses, even if we're not in market. Dude, every time I get an email from Redfin, it is always so relevant and personal, dude. It is around the cities that I typically look, right? So around the cities I typically live in, around the price points that I typically look at. And all the emails give me like 5, 10, 15 recommendations where like I'm oftentimes clicking like all 15 like a mad person, right? You give me 15, I'm clicking all 15. And then Amazon's so good too that they have so much data on us that like they're sending recommendations or info or buy this or buy that or your order's coming. So that was random. But like when I think about click-through rates and open rates, like, dude, I can only imagine that like Redfin and Amazon probably have 100 and 100, right? Like
100%.
not actually, but it's insane. So anyways, back to the scheduled programming. So welcome to purchase rate. So in terms of like the welcome to purchase rate for a lot of this stuff, ideally you're kind of at or above 20%. And if you're not there, it could be your offer strength. So if you're giving someone like a 5% off, like that might just be insulting. It's not compelling whatsoever. Most other folks are giving 10, 15, 20% off, typically in a welcome pop-up. Also the urgency, right? Like if you're just putting things in front of people and there's no real why or kind of urgency or FOMO or kind of scarcity, again, like why would people buy today or why would they buy from you? If your competitors are kind of, moving the needle on their folks, that's gonna happen. And actually, I sent an email recently that someone wrote for me on my kind of Alex inbox about how, like, why you should bully your subscribers. And the word bully wasn't the best term, but like why you should enforce like a deadline and why you should allow people to buy a certain time. If not, you take it away. Because if people have to think and consider something too long, they're going to have analysis paralysis. They're not going to be able to buy from you.
Yep.
So that's that. And then lastly, and then I'll pass it over to Jimmy again, is the unsubscribe rate. So again, with all this, you should have sub 1%, right? If you're over 1%, something is kind of funky and wonky and something's going on. And if that's the case, that either means A, your frequency is way out of whack. If you're sending daily and you didn't tell people when they sign up it's a daily email, like there's just kind of misalignment between expectations and reality. And then also too, it could also be the sense of like, if you told someone one thing, they're going to get this discount code, they're going to get this content, and then the discount code or the content isn't relative or isn't great or isn't up to par with what you promise, it's just not going to happen.
No, I like that. That's pretty good metrics. That's spot on. And I would say I'd add one caveat to all of this, right? Which is if you are experiencing problems around these benchmarks and you keep you, no matter what you do, nothing is changing, nothing's getting better. It is important to go back up the top and look at the traffic source and make sure that the traffic source is also aligned with your message and aligned with all the things. So two reasons for that. One, making sure that whatever they're advertising, your message is aligning and resonating. So if they're selling sleep pip sheets on the top and it's for better sleep, and you're over here talking about, I don't know, losing weight or something completely opposite to it, it's not going to work, right? There's problem number one. Number two is if you are nicely aligned there, then you need to look at the traffic source. If you're on Meta or Facebook or Google or whatever it might be, you got to make sure that whoever the demographic is, the messages and everything lines up, and then that might give you an indication of why these numbers might be or not right. So some things to add to that, I think, as you go through it, like if you're going through and say, what can I test? What can you go over? What can you start playing with? Well, the first thing to play with is obviously the subject lines. You should be split testing, adding emojis, some plain subject lines, playing around with it, seeing what can create different messaging. The next thing, obviously, is always the whole plain text versus HTML emails. A first great email to a person could feel like a really handheld, handwritten email to somebody. That's always a good one. We talked about the whole GIF versus timer on frequency and so forth. I mentioned it again because there is a proven lift through on there. Go try changing things up. And then the last thing I would say is your SMS. Play with that SMS message. Don't always force it. There could be one on day 0 and day 1, or day 0 and day 3, day 2, whatever it might be. Try playing around with when it happens, because what you're doing is you're bumping the kind of like the notice about the coupon and reminding people about it. People get distracted really quickly. So it's important to kind of think about it that way and play with it. So, all right. Rapid fire, man. I kind of want to do some rapid fire final thoughts, right? These are like ideas that we can think about in the welcome flow, things that we can think about. So I'll kick it off and then we'll go back and forth and we'll go through it, right? One idea I have is adding a customer favorites poll in email too, getting some feedback, right? What is your favorite? What do you like? What do you information? Trying to get some kind of click action out of the user by asking them what they want to know. What about you, Chase? What do you got?
Yeah, I like it. I would say, I guess if this is, like a text message thing, SMS, having like an MMS welcome GIF of someone wearing kind of the top selling outfit, or, maybe multiple people wearing the top selling outfit, something like that within that GIF, that would be great, right? It's really engaging. It kind of highlights front and center what's relevant and what's important. And people want the latest and the greatest and kind of the hottest seller.
Absolutely. One I thought about was offering something for free, bonus points, basically loyalty points. If you have a loyalty program or some kind of points system, bribe him, ask him to do something and you'll give back. So you could be like, if you finish this 30-second quiz, I will give you bonus loyalty points today. People love that. Airlines do that to me all the time. Click on this and get 10,000 points or 1,000 points. Even if I don't intend to fly with them, I'll go do that for 30 seconds of my time for the points. People love points. So there's another one.
Dude, I got a good one for you. We were kind of talking about this before, but automatically segmenting people to a lower frequency if they're not engaging with kind of some of your initial emails. And I'd say like very few companies and brands have preference and centers to begin with. That's step one, like maybe adding a preference center. But two, like I never ever seen or heard outside the conversation that you and I had earlier, anyone ever automatically segmenting people to, kind of suppress their frequency if they're not engaging, right? Maybe look at the signals, look at what they're doing, not doing. If they're not engaging, maybe just kind of cool back a little bit, slow things a little bit down, and then wait for them to engage, and then you can kind of recelebrate.
I like that one. Another one from me. A final email could be kind of like a choose your own adventure button, right? They
Cool.
shop, a story, a review, really just getting them to take some kind of action with that final email. I think when your final email, it's kind of like that final Hail Mary you're throwing, and you've got to think about what can I get them to make an action to show me a pulse, show me they're alive. And yeah, opens may give you some indication, but let's be honest, like the click is what we want, and it's going to help you kind of understand a lot more about the user.
Nice. The last one I can think of is, leveraging kind of advertising, kind of retargeting type stuff for segments and lists. But one especially I think that would be important is having a specific segment of people that have clicked within the emails or the text message or whatever that looks like, but haven't purchased, and having something specific speaking to them, trying to get them to A, make that first purchase, or B, potentially to repeat purchase if they haven't bought in that case for a while, would be really great. Some kind of entry offer or kind of some welcome back type offer.
All right. No, that was awesome, man. All right, let's wrap this thing up because we're at the end here, and I think we've done a lot of information. If you've heard this pod so far and you've heard some aha moments, we really hope that you can listen again and make sure you kind of get that clarity. We dropped a lot of different information, but here's the 4 steps really when it comes down to everything we talked about. Number 1, it's all about mapping, right? 4 emails, 2 SMS cadence, really map down how you want to communicate and based on days. Remember I told you the tip about the data? Go look at your data and figure out, is it day 0258 or is it day 2367, whatever it might be, right? Number 2 is deliver a message immediately, a confirmation SMS as soon as possible. Get in front of them when the iron is hot and when they've asked for the information. Do not delay.
Yeah.
I don't care if you show it on the screen. You got to get it in there. Number 3 for me that I've kind of taken from the action list is personalize that message. Get information from them. Tag him. Ask him a quiz. Try to get him to give response or feedback. Whatever you can do to get that information is really important. And last, is really just continue to track and iterate. We talk about this all the time. 30 days, you should be editing these things anyways. I'd almost say a welcome flow because of how important it is. Should be looked at it maybe even every 2 weeks ultimately. And you should be tracking, iterating, removing friction, boosting urgency, trying to find ways to get anything going. Anything I missed here, Chase?
I'd say the last one to add to kind of recap and send this off would be, smaller but kind of tighter, kind of more engaged lists and segments will beat kind of larger zombie unengaged list every single time. So again, sending the right welcome email is super, super important. Introducing kind of some of the welcome text messages as well. Get off on the right foot with these people, and you'll hopefully be able to start printing from these subs if you do this right for a very, very long time.
It's all about lifetime value, right? So that's the
Yes.
goal. All right. Well, Chase, that's a wrap for this show, episode 29, welcome series mastering, going beyond the basics for lasting engagement. Listen, guys, if you enjoyed this pod, first things first, we ask you to subscribe, follow us, and leave us a rating on your favorite podcast listening platform. We prefer YouTube, but we're also found on X, LinkedIn, IG, TikTok, etc. And look, there's a few ways to connect with us. First and foremost, we have a daily newsletter. Surprise, surprise. If you want to come join our newsletter, ecomemailmarketer.com. We drop a newsletter all about retention, and the same thing we talk about here, we'll talk about different things. The second thing is, you've probably heard the ad, but we've got a community in there. A community all around retention marketing. We've got about 350, 370 people now in that community. If you have questions, you want email reviews, you want to talk about deliverability, you want to talk about the hottest trends, it's in there. You should come check us out. Third thing, we also have a certification program. Again, you might have heard an ad about that, but really, if you haven't checked it out, we threw a link on the bottom. It's 25 hours of the best training that we can give you, all the information we can give you thrown inside of there. And last but not least, you can follow us on social media. Chase, where can they find you?
Most platforms, Chase Dimond, no A in Diamond.
There you go. And you can find me mostly on LinkedIn and X. All right. Next week, one of our hottest topics we've had, the one that went the craziest in the market, was all about segmentation. I know, boring topic for whatever reason it is, but next week we're back and we're going to talk about the power of AI segmentation and how you reduce churn and skyrocket sales. We're literally going to talk about segmentation, but in the flip side theory, by leveraging AI, data, behavior, and engagements. We even have a special guest coming on. Very excited about that, Chase. With that being said, thank you for being here as always, Chase, and we'll see you all next week. Catch you guys later.
Cheers.
From the open to the click, they're the masters of the flow. Just watch your list grow and your leads turn to gold. Did we retain you so far, or do we have to extend it? If you want results, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it.